Right, well, I don't know how many of you are new, perhaps this is your first meeting, or perhaps some others have been to one or two meetings. They won't have seen what you've seen tonight just coming in, a little mob out there. Now, that's not a particularly big mob, but what's happening in a country, a democratic country, where you've got, I was told at the first redirection point, there's about 40 far-left extremists, some of them with masks over their face, trying to attack people in cars who are going to a political meeting. And that's wrong. It's deeply, deeply wrong. Particularly wrong when they're claiming to be anti-fascist, when what they're using is the typical techniques of fascism, using violence and intimidation against people who aren't doing anything wrong, who merely want to exercise their democratic rights, in many cases just to listen to an alternative political point of view. You don't brainwash adult people, you put ideas in front of them, they can take them or they can leave them. And if we're so wicked and extreme, it stands absolutely to reason that any ordinary, decent British person would be revolted by what they heard and saw, so they wouldn't come again and they'd tell people about it. But they're trying to prevent people coming to a meeting like this. Well, who are these people and why? Well, the press and so on will say, oh, these are anti-fascist campaigners. They are not. They are, in effect, a low-level militia organised by and for the Labour Party. They're funded and financed by the Labour Party or by the trade unions. So it's trade unions, workers opposing the British National Party. We're mainly a working-class party. Chaddeston, it's a working-class white area. We're the party of ordinary people. And yet you've got the unions, or rather the organisers, the leaders of the unions, maintaining they have a right to use their members' money to attack a democratic political party. And the unions and the Labour Party have a sweetheart deal. Now, you all know, I'm sure, that the unions fund the Labour Party to a very large extent. What you may not know is that the year before last, the Labour Party, the Labour government, they said we're very concerned about falling union membership, so we want to encourage the trade unions. So they gave them £6 million worth of taxpayers' money to run basically campaigns to boost trade union membership. So the government gave £6 million of your money to the trade unions, who then funded very large amounts of it, millions, back in donations to the Labour Party, and also funds the campaign against what, if you look at Gordon Brown and so on, he regards as his main opposition. Whenever there's a by-election, and it happens more and more in different parts of the country, there's a close race between the British National Party and one of the other parties, whether it's Tory, Labour or Lib Dem. All their leaders at one time or another have said, I'd rather you voted for our bitter opponents in Parliament than vote for the British National Party. All of them, they pretend to be, or they make a point of being against each other, and they have their petty little squabbles about 1 penny off income tax or tuppence on income tax or whatever. But when it actually come to a party which has a different set of views, they all come together and you say, this is not a three-party state, this is a one-party state with three factions, essentially, because on all the core issues, they agree. If you look at immigration, you've got a choice between the Labour Party, which first began to open the floodgates in 1948, a Conservative Party which let in more immigrants over the last 40 years than any other party, certainly the Labour Party, until this time around. If you look at the question of the European Union, you've got a choice between the Tory party who took us into Europe, the Labour Party who kept us in Europe with a bogus rigged referendum, the Tory party who signed us up to ever closer union, the Labour Party who've taken us even further down the line into being a mere province in a federal European superstate, or the Lib Dems, whose only complaint about what the other two parties have done is it hasn't been quick enough. You look at the question of the economy, and they all say, oh, this is one of these things, it's a globalised world, what can we do about it? The only reason that our economy is now fatally tied up with the fate of the rest of the world in global terms is the Tory, Liberal and Labour Party together have, over the last 40 years, deliberately allowed and encouraged the globalisation of our economy. They simply have to have free trade. They don't have to have free trade. The Japanese don't have free trade. The Chinese don't have free trade. And they've done extremely well out of it. We've had free trade, and it has destroyed this country's manufacturing base. It's left us a basket case And they said it doesn't matter because you're going to be able to rely on the money being made in the City of London. Ah, wonderful, isn't it? Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea for a few years, and then last year you had people queuing around the block at Northern Rock, and now the entire world banking system in absolute chaos. And they try and pretend it was really nothing to do with us. That was their conscious, deliberate decision to globalise our economy and to give up on the idea that a government should so organise the economy to protect its own people's jobs and its own national independence. Because you're not independent if you don't make things yourself, if you rely on other people. A conscious decision, effectively by this one party which just has three different heads. And particularly the Labour Party, being the one in government, they've been the ones who let loose this mob out there. And they are a mob. If they got the chance, we know from bitter, bitter experience, if they found one elderly person coming into this meeting, they would beat the hell out of them. If they got the chance, it happens time and time and time again. And all too often the police turn a blind eye. Or they do the bare minimum. At the red, white and blue, held not that far from here, earlier on this year, the police were telling us months in advance that they had intelligence that there was going to be serious trouble. In fact, they were so convinced there was going to be serious trouble, they said that we couldn't have a bar or an entertainment licence. We couldn't quite work out the connection between that, given the fact we've been holding this event for 8 years before, and there's never been a single bit of trouble at our event. So they said, well, we've got serious intelligence. This was months before there's going to be trouble. Came the day, they allowed a mob of 50 or 60 masked thugs, including Poles, who'd arrived from Poland that weekend, masked communist thugs over from there to help out their comrades over here. If they were white English kids go to a football match, police would be all over them. They thought there was a hint of possible trouble, which is actually fair enough. What are they doing, allowing foreign agitators, foreign troublemakers to come in here when they know they're coming in, but nevertheless, despite the fact they knew they were coming in, when this mob finally blocked the road and were attacking the cars and vehicles of every single person trying to drive through, even local residents, nothing to do with us. The police maintained for it was an hour and a half, they didn't have the manpower to clear them out of the way. Again, what on earth is happening there? It's a conscious, deliberate decision by the police, because the ordinary police force in this country are good, decent men and women, as they always have been. But the upper echelons of the police force are riddled with political correctness. They're not there to keep the peace, they're not there to keep order, they're basically now social workers, paid for at our expense to enforce the kind of country the Labour Party wants to see. That's what's going on in this country. And as I say, that mob out there, they're not very big, but believe me, their intentions would be very, very unpleasant. And the key thing to remember is they are funded with the Labour Party, by the Labour Party, with taxpayers' money.